How about 100 Republican members of Congress versus basic math? Actually, that's still kind of mean. 100 Republican politicians versus reading. Because as much as I hate to disappoint Marge, reading is required when writing and voting on legislation. We can start with the hungry caterpillar, since that's what Trump becomes every time he sees a KFC. Just eating himself directly through the walls, tables, and chairs until he becomes a butterfly, or at the very least, butter. Because you know there's a reason Trump hasn't signed a single meaningful piece of legislation despite controlling all of government. You know those 2,000-page budgets that they write in Congress? Someone has to write those and read them and decide if the words are the right words, and if they're not, they have to write even more words. This is especially hard work when you only have two brain cells and they're both fighting for second place. Writing policy is for academic nerds, but because Republican voters are still pissed about Obama, they decided to elect people who beat up nerds. Mouth-breathing toddlers who eat their dessert before dinner at Olive Garden and who believe the Earth is 6,000 years old. Now these toddlers wrote a budget that the Congressional Budget Office confirms will add $2.4 trillion to our national debt. And you will never believe the argument that these Republicans are using to try to debunk the math behind the calculations. They believe these tax cuts will generate so much growth it will offset the debt they create. Trickle-down, Reaganomics, supply-side bullshit. Now, if your hair is catching fire, that's because you were probably paying attention when Ronald Reagan used this argument in 1981 to justify his first massive tax cut when our total national debt was under $1 trillion. An argument he used again in 1986 when our debt was over $2 trillion. Then George W. Bush used the same argument again when our debt was $5.8 trillion. And again to justify another tax cut in 2003 when our debt was $6.8 trillion. Then Trump used the same argument again in 2018 to justify cutting taxes when the debt was $21.5 trillion. And now he wants to do it again in 2025 when our debt is over $36 trillion. $35 trillion more than it was 44 years ago when Ronald Reagan first tried to feed us this lie. 100 Republicans versus math? I'm taking the calculator every time.